Hello and welcome to From the Be-All End. This is the final debrief of the season. It's all over. Burnley's miserable campaign in the Premier League has finally finished. It finished with a 2-1 defeat at home to Nottingham Forest. We have a full-strength side out. No one's reaching the end of their contract. No one's saying any fond farewells today. But we have Andrew Greaves, Paul Woodhouse, Chris Bowden and Justin Connolly, who've all taken up their options for next season, I hope. Gentlemen, let's start off with the pair of you who were on the turf today. Greavesy, it was a chance to say farewell to some old players. It was a chance to take some sort of positive feeling into the summer, which didn't really happen. But how was the turf today? What was the experience like overall?
It was very weird. It's just a very odd atmosphere. I mean, end of season games, me and Woody were saying just before everyone came on, end of season games are a bit difficult, but it had the feeling of I've got past caring. You know when you get to that point of I can't even get angry anymore. I can't even be bothered to get angry. Yeah, I am. You know what I mean? It's that kind of. It was just dog shit. Absolutely. I mean, it's the only time I've not had to queue to get into the turf. So quite a few people took the sunshine option and not bothering going on. And about 90 seconds into the game, when Chris Wood got the first of his 2 goals, I could kind of see over towards Finsley Gate, thinking I could have just been sat on the grass at the Finsley Gate Wharf like I was 35 minutes ago, drinking a nice glass of Spanish beer and just forgetting all about this absolute turgid dog shit season that we've had. But other than that, Simon, yeah, it was a pretty cracking day out.
I must admit, if you're a season ticket holder, the pressure that partners and spouses and family members and friends can put on you with a game like this. I mean, even watching it on TV, I got a little mention of what. You know they're already relegated. What's the point? Why are they even playing this game? But they do play these games. And Justin, what was it like for you there?
I had a very similar experience. The game itself seemed to sort of wash over me a little bit. It was quite difficult to stay sort of focused and engaged on it, without your mind wandering onto something else, because it was such an inconsequential experience that. And the crowd was, as Greavesy says, it looked very much from the start even that quite a lot of people hadn't bothered to turn up. And I must admit, were it not for the fact that we were, saying goodbye to a couple of players who I wanted to say goodbye to, I did consider not going. But at the end, I thought to myself, I want to go because I want to make sure that this season is actually over. I want to see it with my own eyes. Otherwise, I might not believe that it's actually come to an end. And that's the overriding feeling at the end of it all, isn't it? Like just relief that we've now got a blank page and we can, move on. I've not experienced a season like it, really. It's been really, really strange. And that was a sort of fittingly strange end to it. A defeat, a performance where, I don't know, I find it difficult. Like Greavesy says, it's hard to... I didn't really feel anything about it at all. It was really quite a weird experience. Only really Odebear. I thought Odebear had a pretty good game. I had a go at least, but there was a lot of that tapping it around 10 yards outside the edge of their box with 2 banks of 4 in front of us and no way through. We've seen it several times this season. We can't find a key to unlock that kind of defending. And didn't really matter today anyway, did it? So overriding feeling is I'm just glad it's all over.
Woody, it weren't much fun watching it on television, was it really? I mean, the commentator did my nutting, but also just listening to an hour of all you could hear on the audio were Nottingham Forest fans singing.
That's horrible. That's one of my least favourite things about footy. When things are going shit and you knew they were going to be chippy, and you gave them the opportunity to be even chippier by letting them bag in the first 90 seconds. And it was Chris Wood. And he went through that fucking repertoire of god-awful modern tunes, and modern chants that are just absolutely apprehensible. And it just continued for 90 minutes. And that was it. And it was just horrible. I even tried to tune it out, turn it down, whatever. And it was still, when it got to, Muller Kintyre, that was it.
Oh.
2 TVs went through and I'd had enough. But it was, like everybody said, it's one of those weird things. You only kind of watched it for the guys who were leaving for one last time, but 73% possession, wandering around, the pitch, playing the highest line I think anybody's played in the Premier League all season, and nobody really gave a shit. And that was that.
Chris, I mean, it's been a season that I think, there's a million and one stats would tell you how bad it's been overall, but it was, I've heard people saying, "Oh, this was the season in a microcosm," about 1 million times this season. But there was something about that game, wasn't there, where we're passing the ball about quite nicely and looked quite comfortable, and yet it all seemed rather pointless.
Yeah, I said I'd actually watched the Bolton final yesterday on Saturday as we're discussing it, and it's same sort of thing. Ian Everett, we're the best team in League One, and he's got this philosophy, this ethos, and we play the right way. And his centre-halves passed it between themselves all game, and then had absolutely no answer to a team that had done their own work, pressed right up against them, and absolutely schooled them. And yeah, it's been like that almost every week with Burnley. Teams have sussed us out. We pass it between ourselves, between the boxes. We don't look like scoring. We don't look like keeping goals out. And it's been the same from day one. And 24 defeats in 38 games is pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. And I'm looking at the only teams that have failed to beat us. Brighton, who we've drawn with twice. Fulham, who we managed to beat away and nick a point at home. Sheffield, who beat themselves, and Luton, who to all intents and purposes we probably would have beaten twice, but for one of the more controversial decisions of the season. But you're looking ahead to what sort of redeeming factors, and it's almost like the start of last season when we didn't know how to get results over the line. We haven't got that nous of how to win games with these youngsters. And then they needed their hands holding by the Barneses, the Corks, the Taylors, the Rodriguezes, Brownhills, Goodmansons, people like that. And then you think next season we're probably going to have, could potentially have none of those. And you think, who's going to be the one who drags them forward, and sees them over the line, that has that streetwise nature about them, that nous. And that's my huge concern going into next season. I think on paper, as it stands, we could put a team out that could blow teams away in the Championship week on week, but they need a bit of nous. And like I say, I can't see J-Rod staying put. Whether Brownhill's signed this, his option to be sold remains to be seen. Taylor, whether he finds better elsewhere, but they need some good old fashioned, without sounding xenophobic. You need that sort of British, so that knowledge of Championship football to get us over the line, supplemented with some of these fabulous technical footballers that we've got.
Yeah, there was a good stat from Dave Roberts, who produces an incredible amount of stats on Twitter for Burnley, who said this season was so poor that Burnley managed fewer league wins, 5, than the cumulative number of W's on the front of the home second and third shirts combined, 6. The league win percentage, 13.16%, is the worst in the club's entire history from 125 seasons. That is an absolutely incredible stat. And yet I've spent all afternoon listening to a bloke on television tell me that Vincent Kompany is a brilliant manager. The worst win record in the history of the entire club.
Forever forward.
Yep. Best never stops.
Hey, no. There were a good little message, though, from Alan Pace in the programme. I must admit, he might have a sense of humour, because I had to. I certainly laughed when I read this bit where he said, he's talking about how Vincent spoke eloquently, and then he said, many of you will have heard me refer to the project. I think we've heard that, haven't we?
Yeah.
In terms of what we're going on the ground as well, I must admit, so the TV feed cuts off a couple of minutes after the end, so we didn't see this huddle. I've seen pictures on social media of the huddle with Kompany, which I imagine took place quite a while after everyone was sort of having a natter with Chris Wood and putting their arms around each other and stuff. But then I'm reading there was a lap of honour. I mean, how can you have a lap of honour after a season like that, Greavesy?
Yeah, I mean, I stayed to the end, obviously, clapped in the general direction of the pitch as I'm coming down the steps, etc. But, I mean, they are used to, I mean, they do after every game, obviously, do a bit of a full lap, if you will, or, at least the home ends. But I see the club have just put out pictures, a few pictures of players with their kids on and better halves on the pitch and things like that. So I think it was probably one of those kind of, lap of honours where they walk the kids round and their partners, and not quite sure how many people would be still there at that point. I was saying it's the first time I've ever known us not to put out multiple warnings to stay off the playing surface, and the message going on the big screen, and the stewards literally 5 or 6 deep around the ground. There was just none of that, and there was just a general, I think, apathy of, I can't even be asked risking a football banning order by going on and wellying a ball from 40 yards towards the Jimmy Mack stand. It's just, I've never known a season where we've not invaded the pitch. I mean, it's a bit difficult for me in the upper tier, same as Justin, but it just added to that kind of general, the stewards only came out with about 30 seconds of injury time to go, and they looked almost bemused because they'd clearly been told in the briefing, look, there's going to be hundreds of people trying to get on the pitch. You've got to just make an effort to try and stop them. Not a single soul, as far as I was aware, encroached onto the pitch. There was no need for, warnings or anything like that. But, I think it would have been quite nice just to send Corky and JBG out, I think, and, got them just to kind of wave to the crowd, maybe Jane Taylor, because I don't think either of them will sign their offered 1-year deals, which, apparently they've been offered. But it just, like Justin said, just a weird, everything about it was just weird today. The whole thing, it looked busy on Harry Potts Way. As soon as we got to the turnstiles, there was no queues. First time this season, there's been no queues. Yeah. The concourses weren't that busy. The stands were, you kind of thought, well, maybe the sunny weather people will come in late, but nothing really got going. So the whole lap of honour thing, it could have almost been, the last game of pre-season, and it was just like, the worrying thing, though, of course, is that is the first game of the next season, because that's what Vincent said, didn't it? Vincent said that the Sunday after the Spurs game was day one of the new season, so I'm already a bit miffed that we've lost his first game of the 24-25 season to Nottingham Forest.
See, I tell you what, though, given it's like the worst season, according the stats that Simon's just given, that is incredible, isn't it? But what's even more incredible is that people aren't angry about it, or they don't seem to be. Like after the game there, I mean, there was a bit of booing at half time, wasn't there, when they went off at half time? But it was just sort of like a sigh and let's get out of here as quick as we can and get out in the sun, get the boozer, and just put this all behind us and forget about it. There was no kind of like no anger or anything like that. I mean, I'm surprised. I am surprised. I didn't like you. I was away. On the final whistle. I can't clap in the general direction of the of the pitch as I'm going down them steps. The steps are a bit too high for me. I have to concentrate on not losing my balance and breaking a hip. But yeah, unless the team were going to unfurl a massive banner saying we are very sorry, there was no point. There was no point in me staying for any longer than it was necessary. So I was away too.
Which they would have done in the Bundesliga, of course. There seems to be that kind of culture, don't they? Of know, holding the banner, going, "We've been shy. I'm really sorry." But there were a couple of nice bits. I will say, they introduced the under 9s team for next year, right? So half time, they had all these kids in Burnley shirts. The Jack Cork and Jay post pictures with them, and they introduced all these kids who are kind of like I guess under 9s is the first kind of intake in the academy. And that was really nice moment. These kids are, they announced these, 7 or 8 kids, and they're saying, they're going to play on the turf a week on Sunday in a little competition, and they're going to join the club. And I thought that was really nice. You know what I mean? When you're looking, it's a bit of a doom and gloom at half time. They were in front of the North Stand. They looked really excited when they read out each of the names, and they were doing as players do with the salutes and all of that shit. But that was a really nice moment. Martin Dobson, I think somebody mentioned on Up the Clarets as well. Dobbo was really good at half time. He's a brilliant storyteller, he's Martin Dobson, and that was quite nice. So there was a couple of nice little, you know what I mean? If the performance are doing better, you could have ended this season and we'd have gone, you know what, we're still down, but we nicked a draw, we won. And there were a couple of nice little bits where you kind of go, there was none of that shite of, a 16-year-old lad winning 250 quid off a boiler or a free boiler maintenance in this kind of crap penalty kick competition. It felt kind of like, if we'd have just had the performance, we could have come away from there going, you know what, it's been a really crap season, but sun was shining, it were hot, we've won and we've got a draw, we're down, but look, there were enough there to see it. We got to wave goodbye to some good players, and we've seen there's been a couple of nice little bits. Ian Bannister retiring, the voice of Turf Moor, the guy who reads the scores, retiring after 34 years at the Turf. That were nice. You know what I mean? So there were lots of lovely little bits. I don't want to be, I came on.
I'd have offered him a 1-year deal.
I would. You could play left back, Kompany, but there we go. But
and then not used him for next season.
Well, that's what we've kind of done for the last few seasons, isn't it? It's like passing up to Ian in the box for the half-time scores, and that's all he's permitted to do, kind of thing. But yeah, so there were a couple of nice little bits. I think it's really easy for us just to be overly critical. So there were a couple of bits that I quite enjoyed in the sunshine, but performance-wise, I'm not weirdly that worried about the Championship, because I think the Championship's pretty poor. But I 100% take on Chris's point. We could be among the kind of top. We should be amongst the top 6. We should be amongst the top 2 really with the squad we've got. The worry, of course, is when you lose that experienced spine of Cork and Jay and JBG, even if they're not on the pitch. Who's dragging them through training? Who's setting examples? And that's the worry, isn't it?
Yeah, the thing about the Championship is, and I keep hearing, we'll bounce back. And I totally agree that this side, as bad as it's been, should be good enough to compete for the top 6. But the top 6 isn't good enough, is it? Really? I mean, it's got to be good enough to get in the top 2. Because if we don't get out of the playoffs, then we've got 1 year of parachute payments left after that, haven't we? So we've got 2 to come, not 3, because we've been up and down. So, just missing out in the playoffs, as either Leeds or Southampton are going to do, just missing out in the playoffs is really, starting to get a little bit worrisome for the financial situation, isn't it? So they've got to be able to come back. They've got to be ready to hit the ground running and go and win, because finishing, a good season. Normally, if there wasn't the financial situation, you'd say, well, if we just miss out in the playoffs, bad luck, go again next time. But the clock will be ticking on it.
Don't forget the Klops go back this week.
Yeah. Hey. On the players that we're saying farewell to, we should talk a little bit about Johan Berg Gudmundsson, because in the last podcast we had a good appreciation of Jack Cork, and I think we said all the things we wanted to say about him, but we didn't really get in. It wasn't clear at that time when we were doing it so much about JBG. But we know he's going now. He's done his interview. A player who, different memories coming to mind, that equaliser against Manchester City and so on. But I thought even coming on against Forest, he showed with his touches and his composure the level of class he has as a player. Chris, start us off with an appreciation of Goodmanson.
Yeah, he just. I think everyone will remember watching Johan play against us when we won the championship title in May 2016. With the lad called Luckman, I think we'd have liked as well, and a certain Nick Pope in goal. Obviously ended up with two of the three, Pope and Johan. I think something like 2.5 million combined. It's just absolutely ludicrous business, ludicrous. But it obviously went away with Iceland and helped knock England out. It just looked the perfect fit in that. For a Sean Dyche team, it could graft. It'd be against the ball. It'd be diligent. Good at keeping his shape and then playing from the shape. Wand of a left foot, great attitude. The only shame, sort of watching it, Johan initially was that if only had a bit more pace. That seemed to sort of kill him from being a top class Premier League footballer. But so I mean, injuries, but for injuries, we'd have seen an awful lot more of him, and he's still made nearly 250 appearances in a Burnley shirt. But just a solid, a good egg, and whether you played him centrally as they did at times last season, where he could dictate things, or just blocking up a side really on that right hand side, doing a job for the team. Again, he's one of these players who played European football for Burnley for the first time in half a century, and for that alone, he's an icon. So the best of luck to him. I'd love to have seen him stay for another year, but again, so be if he's. I don't know whether he goes back nearer home, returns to Holland or something like that, or remains to be seen. But very best of luck to him. A nice chap and a terrific servant.
And part of an incredible generation for Iceland, really, that'll be remembered for a long, long time for what they did, achieved things that their country had never, ever achieved. And he was a big part of that team, wasn't he? Woody, your thoughts on JBG?
Yeah, I watched his interview, and you could tell how cut up he genuinely was about leaving. And it kind of brought this whole era like home a little bit, and it, like you're saying, barring those injuries and barring a little bit more pace, it would have been an absolute world beater. But the fact that he managed to readapt after his injuries, he adapted to how Dyche wanted to play, and then adapted again under Vincent. And you'd probably call him a player's professional, wouldn't you? The fact that he would adapt and he had that level of discipline, and he was always at least a 7 out of 10, and could deliver a ball when he wanted to, and pop up and score a very nice left-footed thwack every now and again. And I genuinely think we'll miss him. I think he's the type of player in this next championship campaign that we may miss, that level of nous, guile, and professional ability. But I do genuinely wish him all the best.
Justin?
Yeah, I obviously agree with everything everyone said about him. I think he's one of those players that Chris was talking about before, who has that, who can guide people around him through how to win a football match. He definitely done that for us before in the past. In fact, for a long time, I would have said that he was our best player, even through that period where, he perhaps didn't play as much as he could have done because of his injury problems. But he wasn't just that sort of workhorse type who would track back and do all that hard stuff. He had some real quality in that left foot of his, and I'm quite surprised. He's the one out of the sort of two. I'm quite surprised that they're letting him go. I mean, obviously, if they have offered him a deal, it probably at his age is only going to be a 1-year deal. So obviously he reckons he can probably get better than that somewhere else, and I'm absolutely certain that he will do. And not necessarily at a lower level either. I think he can still definitely do a job at that level, and with all his experience and all his know-how. You saw it today. There were times when Vitinho came on at right back in the second half, and he was bombing, and Goodmanson was dropping in behind him to cover for him when he does one of them crazy horse runs up front. And he's been that kind of player, hasn't he? The one who can see what's going on in the game and can react to it and can, fill in the gaps when he needs to, but also, has that stuff going forward. So I think Woody's right. We will miss him. He definitely is one of those players who could bring a bit of know-how next year, and I'm really sad and sorry to see him go.
Groovesy?
Yeah, I think he's adapted his game as well, hasn't he? I think I know he's kind of played a bit more central last year, but I think, not a lot of players, a lot of players keep doing the same thing even when the legs are slightly going or whatever. But I agree with everything everyone said. I've loved watching him at times, absolutely superb. And he works and works and works. He's never shirked responsibilities backwards and forwards. And yeah, he's that little bit of, class. And he's, when you look at all these young, untested wingers who perhaps don't have that nous or that kind of, decision making, these are the kind of things that in training, he's the kind of person you should be learning from. I think Woody said, he's like a player's player almost. And I think he is, I know we always talk about, always a good pro, we say the same about Corky and Jay and, these players as they get older. But I think one of the beauties of Johan is that he adapted his game, he never had that pace really, but he probably has less pace now than when he signed and all that. But he's found that he's got a position. When Kompany came in and started signing players, like Benson, like Zero, you kind of went, I can't see where Goodmanson fits in. Obviously, his injury. Yet last season was probably the fullest season we got out of him from an injury point of view. And he was playing more central. He was kind of, as you said, filling in, and he has all them qualities that this new breed don't necessarily have. I call it the FIFA generation. They're all about, although, to be fair, Odebear track back. And, I find his defensive work is getting better. And I just wonder whether, Kompany said to him, like, look, this is the blueprint. Johan is the blueprint. I know Brun Larson, I don't know whether we're going to keep him or not. He was hooked at half-time with Asin-Yong there, the two loan players who we've not got a decision on yet, suggests they may not be here next season. Brun Larson was almost kind of a regen of Goodmanson in terms of his work rate and his, his kind of skill set, if you will. But yeah, I think we will miss Johan. And I think, echo what everybody else said, wish him all the very best, because I think at championship level, he has still got a lot to offer, even dropping back into the Dutch league or, one of those kind of leagues, go and get yourself a 2-year deal somewhere, mate, and just, get a nice big contract, enjoy your football like you clearly have been doing, and somebody else will benefit from his years of experience. It just won't be us.
No, I totally agree with all that, and I think we will miss him, and I think we'll miss that generation now that's all departing, isn't it? Really, it's who knows what's to come. We'll find players in the future who will hopefully fill their shoes, but. It does feel like now this is the final sort of cut-off of what's left of the Dyche year. And for me, like the one thing last season when Vincent moved him into that central role and played him almost as a number 10, didn't he, behind the front line a bit? And I thought that's really smart management. That's like really astute to look at the resources you have, look at an experienced player and think how you can, I've got more pace, I've got more trickery out wide, but I can still make use of this guy in the middle. And I thought that was one of the things that made me think this guy's a really good manager and a really good coach. And yet this year, we haven't seen any of that kind of decision-making. We've seen players be just abandoned. And, you're surprised that we never tried to find a way to maybe use a Jack Cork in a deep lying role and allow Berger to go forward or something like that. There's been nothing like that. There's not been any of that sort of smart decision making. It did look, just to go back to that point, Chris, it did look a bit when both the loan players were pulled at half time, that did feel like a bit of a sort of, right, now we are in next season sort of mode. It might have just been a coincidence, but a bit odd to take Assignon off. I don't think that would have happened in a normal game, would it? But do we expect those two to probably be on their way? I mean, there's nothing been signed from either of them, has there?
No, the way Vincent was talking in the week before the game, he suggests that those deals are very much alive on the table as such. Actually, I'd like to see Brun Larson stay on. As Greavesy said, he's just a like for like for Goodmanson. It's at the end of the day, he's a top flight footballer, isn't he? In Germany, it's whether he wants to go back and pursue that. He's probably had. He's kick-started his career again, has he? We know he suffered with injuries, and lack of game time. He's progressively through the season had more game time, more opportunity, and he's finished as top goal scorer. I'd love him to sort of say, yeah, I want to be part of this project and move, help this team back into the Premier League. But whether his demands are too much remains to be seen. Same with Assignon. He's looked like he wants to be part of the setup from day one. A real good, let's say on the face of it, a real good character. You just hope that sort of little set two with O'Shea the other week, there's not sort of any ructions on the back of that, because he's made a largely favourable impression in his time. Typical modern day fullback who's better going forward than he is defensively. But I think he'd be another big asset. But it boils down to what pot of money he's got available at the end of the day, doesn't he? But surely, Assignon in particular, having been brought in January, they must, when we were essentially down then anyway. If he's bringing him in January, he's got to have some idea that he will come into a club that's likely going to be playing in the Championship. So fingers crossed he does stay on.
Yeah, Matt, I just thought he'd put himself in the shop window a bit, though. I mean, it doesn't work, that, doesn't it? People around the Premier League have seen him, so we'll see. I know Woody would be gutted if he leaves, won't he, Woody?
Distraught. Although I thought it was a case where he didn't. The option was that if we were to go down, that he wasn't interested. So I was surprised last week to actually hear that he fancied another year and he was willing to talk about, another contract. So we shall see.
We shall see about a lot of players. I mean, there's a lot of things up in there, aren't there? Jordan Bayer. There's players we've forgotten about, Alda Keel and so on, and we'll see what comes out of it. But there was some chat, Greavesy, from Kompany towards the end of the week. A few things happened after we'd recorded, actually, weren't there? There was the chairman's little GIF war with Sasha Tavolieri as well, which was quite a strange and amusing situation. And then of course there was Kompany talking and basically saying it's not the same situation as last time we were relegated. We don't need to sell in the same sense, but if somebody's outgrown, we won't step in their way. I mean, we try to read things into all of this, but it does sound like the dreaded phrase fire sale doesn't seem to quite be the case, but we can probably expect quite a lot of players to leave because we've got a squad of 40 odd and there's going to have to be a good chunk of them leave.
Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because he also said there's a couple of gems that Burnley fans haven't seen yet. Which, and he didn't then, so he said, oh, do you mean in the under 23s, etc., etc. And he kind of went, oh, I'm not going to tell you, etc., etc. So he's a bit cryptic at times. In his post-match, I've just been reading the kind of post-match quotes from him. It's headlined up on the website as "There's an exciting future ahead," which. Witness today, I'm not sure, but he did say, look, we have got an exciting squad, which I think we have, not ready for the Premier League yet, I will admit, he said, but for the Championship, we have got a good squad. Part of the problem is we do forget about players. There was a car trying to get into the car park at about 20 to 4 today, and it was Aaron Ramsey, and I'd forgot we had Aaron Ramsey because he's obviously been injured. So we've got a load of these players. Alderkeil not featured since picking up an injury. Masengo on the bench today, who I still think could have been the saviour of this season. It's easy to say that when he's not had game time in it. Bear, as you mentioned, I did start writing out a list of people we could sell, and my arm started aching. But I got to Twine, Egan, Riley, Obafemi, Cherlinov, Bastian. That is just 5 of something like 13 or 14 players we've got out on loan. None of these players cost a lot of money. None of these were like big money signings. So, is there a little bit of money there to be made? I noticed Alan Nixon from The Sun saying that both Murrich and Trafford are being tracked. Trafford by Newcastle, Murrich by Wolves and Celtic. So there's lots and lots of stuff kind of in the kind of, pipeline, I guess. It's going to be a really interesting season. We're obviously going to keep an eye on Sacha. Because he's the man in the know on a lot of these things, and the kid's kind of row with pace kept us quite amused in it on Friday, I have to say. But there's lots and lots, and lots of things will happen. But I don't think it's a fire sale. I don't think it's this kind of we're not in a position where we have to sell big and anything like that. There's a few players I'd quite happily give a piggyback to Manchester Airport. They will remain in my head perhaps until Friday's episode, which incidentally is the 50th episode of the normal podcast on Friday, if my kind of filing system is correct. So maybe we'll discuss some of these players then. But 40 odd players in that squad. We need to trim it. It needs to be trimmed. You cannot carry a championship squad of that many players. So he has some ruthless decisions to make. And it looks like he started already with the likes of JBG and Corky and Jay and Taylor as well, who I don't expect to stay.
Yeah, I mean, it could be the kind of summer where the club's saying it's not going to be a lot going on, and trying to sort of dampen down worries about a fire sale, or maybe dampen down expectations about signings. But there could be 20-odd moves going on. Woody, what do you sort of expect it's going to be like this summer, just from the fan perspective of watching all this news and memes and all the stuff that goes on now?
It'll be a fire sale without being a fire sale. Like you say, there's a lot of people who will be going, various people coming in, etc. So I think they're probably right to try and set expectations that it doesn't need to be a fire sale. I don't think we need too much panic going on currently, because I think we could be easily spooked as Burnley fans over the next few weeks, couple of months or whatever. But it's literally anybody could go. You could lose half the squad, or you could lose all the players that you wanted to keep. You could keep half the players that you wanted to keep. You've no idea. Saying you could lose both keepers. That suddenly becomes a moot conversation after this season of every single pod talking about either Trafford or Murrich, and they both bugger off. And we're left with Biscuit Riss, and he's out of contract, isn't he? So so we don't know, but I think it'll be interesting. I think it will be very interesting.
It will, yeah. Justin, what do you sort of hope for from this summer? What do you think the best we could get out of this summer would be?
I think it's probably the same as you want every summer. You want to cut loose the deadwood. Make sure you keep the core of the squad that's finished the season, cement the place in the team, and then fill in the gaps. We still need a left back, don't we? We still need a holding midfielder. We probably need another striker. So it doesn't sound to me like, from what they're saying, it's going to be another one of those seasons where we sign a player every other day over the entire summer. If it is, something's going badly wrong, isn't it? But like everyone else is saying, we do need to get rid of some of these players, and when the loan players come back, presuming that their wages have been covered by the clubs they've been playing for, at least in part, then the wage bill is going to look pretty scary, isn't it? If we don't trim down, the number of players we've got. So what I want is, I want them to try and keep the core of this team that has evolved into something that I think is on the brink of being, potentially competitive in the Premier League. Keep the core that has had this run over the last sort of couple of months together, and augment it with acquisitions to fill in the little holes that we've been saying for a long time are still there, and then you want that team to sort of. I think one of the advantages of going down into the Championship is that it gives you a little bit of an opportunity to be slightly more experimental. We talk about Masengo, and I really wanted to see him, but every game in the Premier League is so high risk, isn't it? It's quite difficult to drop these young players in and give them a bit of a chance to show what they can do.
Yeah, saw that with Ramsey, didn't we?
Yeah, exactly. Without the potential for it to become a disaster from which they don't recover. Championship is a little bit easier to blood that youth a little bit. There's more games for a start, so there's not as much jeopardy on each and every occasion. So, I think there probably are some players there who have the potential to break through into the side next season. So, I'm talking about 2 or 3 incomings and about, like you said, could be 20 outgoings, couldn't it? And we'd still have a squad that was probably a bit over the numbers you would like to keep. I just don't want a massive churn. That's what I don't want. We've had over the last 2 summers. I think that would be counterproductive. Obviously, they're not all going to go, but there are signs to my eyes, at least, that we're heading a little bit in the right direction. I don't want that derailed. That's my main hope for the summer, I think.
Yeah, and like you learn things, don't you, when people make these decisions? You learn things about no one's ever going to come out and say they don't like the manager, very rarely, maybe after they've left. People don't talk about being unhappy very often. No one wants to be that player who whinges and so on. But when it comes to actually putting pen to paper, you do get a pretty strong indication of what people think about a situation as well. What do you expect, Chris, from it to wrap us up?
Well, bearing in mind that, is it Sharandi Sambo from PSV is due to come in as a right full-back in the summer. So you have Vitinho there. So again, Assignon might be surplus to requirements in that sense anyway. I'm not sure of Roberts' contract situation off the top of my head, but again, he seems surplus to requirements. They have to bring in a forward, whether that's an experienced hand to help Foster again, or something similar, pacey, powerful to supplement him. But again, you look through that midfield. If Brownhill's not being sold after his option being extended, Brownhill on paper, and I said this 2 years ago, he should be in and around the Championship Player of the Season, because he's that type. He'll get you at least 5 goals, 5 assists. He'll run the show. Then you've Cullen as well. Berger, who should be head and shoulders above anything in that league. Your midfield on paper is the best midfield in the Championship. Defensively, you're just spoilt for options at centre half. So goalkeeper situation. If Trafford's on the radar of Newcastle or Liverpool, then let's try and make a few quid and just say, well, sorry, but not sorry. It's just not worked out, that one. Keep Muric. Muric was the Championship goalkeeper of the season again. But we're asking Benson and Zarori to come out from the fringes and say, can you go for us again? I mean, how motivated are they to do that? But then again, you've got Koleosho and Odebear, haven't you? So it just remains to be seen. But I don't think it needs much in terms of incomings. It's just how many we hold on to.
Yeah, I think Foster ended the season really badly, actually. I mean, I think his last few games, and I remember that was in our very early episodes, we were talking about, is Foster going to be the answer at centre forward in the Premier League? And the first couple of months of the season, you thought he was and could go on and do something really good. And then he's ended it as the sort of worst version of Foster that we've seen in a lot of ways, I think. But so that debate will come up again. But I agree completely. I think it's about rationalising the squad, really, isn't it? It's just about making sense out of it all, cutting it down to a size that's manageable, But yeah, I don't think we need too many. I mean, just those wingers you just mentioned then. I mean, if Aurora and Vincent are back and we've got Koleosho fit again and Odebear, who was doing really well in the Premier League and should really destroy defences in the Championship, then there's quite a lot to look forward to, as there is. Right, shall we draw a line under that miserable bloody season and call that a season? And
yes,
we'll
please.
be back. We'll be back on Friday with the start of the summer episodes. I don't know if we're going to be doing. Won't be any debriefs, will there, over the summer? But we'll be still doing the pod. We'll take some soundings on social media as well about what kind of content you want. But I would imagine, Greavesy, would be looking mostly at transfer updates, plus maybe some interviews with Claret personalities and players of the past and that kind of thing to just keep us enthused during the summer months.
Yeah, I think there's going to be plenty for us to talk about. So we'll do the normal pod every week and then supplement it with a couple of kind of specials and things like that and interviews. Anyone with any ideas of anything you wanted to tell a story on, anything like that, we could do some digging and try and set up some interviews. So, yeah, anything on social media that you want to hear us cover and chat about, I'm sure we'll be able to get some good ideas from our fans. I should point out, both me and Justin did see somebody in a From the BLN T-shirt. Maybe the same guy, I don't know. Mine was in blue with Claret walking down Parkinson Street. Parliament Street, sorry. Burnley.
We do want your pictures when you go on holiday and you're from the BLN merch. We want to see those Teesdale out T-shirts in Ibiza pictures. So get yourself to the shop and have a look what there is, because there might be some new arrivals at some stage over the summer as well. So grab the ones that are there now while you can. And have a good week, and thanks very much, and up the Clarets.
Jimmy McElroy to Watson. Go.